Friend, today I've got the pleasure of talking with a friend of mine who I just recently met, Terry Dean. She's a chef instructor, cookbook author, and a creative powerhouse who somehow managed to turn explaining things into an art form. From teaching Google kids on how to eat better to breaking down dumplings and walk classes for home cooks, to even lending her voice to tell stories. This is super exciting. She's on a mission to make good food and learning accessible, fun, and actually doable. I've been looking forward to picking her brain. And honestly, she's someone that just kind of popped out as very unique to me in the space of, chef books and just a different perspective on how we learn how to cook and all kinds of things. And I was like, you know what? This woman seems interesting and I want to have her on the show because I have lots of questions. But, there's a lot of people out there, a lot of authors out there who want to become authors or write a chef book or a cookbook or, all that good stuff. So this is the conversation for you. Terry, how you feeling? Thanks for coming on the show.
Hey there, Hussein. Great to be here. Thank you for asking me to join in.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're sort of, obviously you're very multi-talented, but not only are you talented, you actually take action on those talents. So you're a chef, you're an author, you're an instructional designer, and a voiceover talent. But if someone forced you to pick, what's one role lighting you up the most right now, and why?
I think in the middle of all that, chef, cookbook author, instructional designer, and voiceover artist, there's also chef instructor, which really lights me up. In fact, I miss that so much. I love being in the classroom, in the kitchen, elbow to elbow, cooking with people and showing them little tips and tricks and best practices. And really, my point of view is I want people to learn how to live their best lives through food and nourish their families and do it without making it so much of a labor intensive, burdensome kind of process. I want it to be fun. I want it to be really effortless, and I want it to be delicious, and I want it to be nutritious. But that's what I really miss the most, is being a chef instructor. If there's one thing I could do for the rest of my life, is
Yeah,
teach people how to cook.
that's amazing. I love that. Well, and it shows, right? Because obviously you've written 4 books now and working on your next one. And I want to know a little bit about sort of what got you into, because I know we were just talking off screen here, talking about, you had a political background and you kind of switched gears and you got into the cooking world, became a chef. What was it about maybe perhaps how you grew up, where you grew up? What was it about becoming a chef that was intriguing to you? I kind of want to know a little bit about your history, I guess.
So I think
She laughs.
cooking. So I think cooking really, it unlocked a feeling of independence for me.
Mm,
I grew up as a latchkey kid. My parents worked really hard to put my brother and me through school and give us all the opportunities that we had. But literally after school, like letting myself into the apartment alone, or maybe even with my brother back then. This was a long time ago. But ooh, I'm hungry. I need an afternoon snack. And that's not necessarily something that my parents would think about, like, oh, let's prepare something so that they have something waiting for them when they get home from school. So we either got pizza from the corner pizzeria on our way home from school, or, I would have to look in the kitchen and see what I could make. And I really enjoyed that feeling of independence. Like nobody was around to tell
mm,
me what to do. Nobody was around to say, oh, don't use that, or don't turn on the stove. And all of these things that, an 8-year-old should not be doing.
right.
But it was that sense of discovery and independence, and that feeling that I can make something for myself. I'm hungry and I can do this on my own. I don't need to ask permission. I don't need somebody to show me how to do it. I'm going to figure it out myself. I tried all kinds of horribly gone wrong kitchen experiments as a child. But it was something that it was discovery, it was experimentation, it was creativity, it was a snack at the end of the day, something yummy. And I felt like, oh, I could pull this out of the kitchen and I don't have to spend my allowance money going to the store to buy a snack. I could make the snack myself. And, it's
Yeah.
totally different. You cannot, as an 8-year-old, make the same potato chips you can buy at the store, but, I tried.
Right.
Um, did not succeed, but I tried. But yeah, it's cooking was something that I always turned to, even through school and then through my career as a political consultant. It was something that was my escape. It was my stress relief.
Mhm.
It was my release from all of the really stressful, hard pressure things that I had to deal with on a
Yeah.
campaign. And so, yeah, it was something that, and I'll tell you just a really quick story. It was my one of my
Mhm.
very last campaigns, and I was in the Central Valley in California, and it was a small town, and I literally carpet bag, like dropped in, rented an apartment, lived there for the 9 months of the campaign, and would maybe take the campaign workers to lunch sometimes. And there was this really wonderful grocery store nearby. And I would show them the produce and the cheese, and oh, we could like do this, and this bread is so lovely. And they were just like, you are such a different person when you're around food. You're delightful to talk to.
Oh, wow.
When we're in the office, you're not so fun to work for. So,
Mm,
and they were kind and honest enough to say, maybe you should think
sure.
about doing something in food.
Yeah.
And so I was like in my late 20s at the time, early 30s, and it was just about the right time for maybe a career change, or career pivot, as they say. And so I thought long and hard about it and said, yeah, I think nice of them to be so honest to tell me like what a bitch I was in the office and how
Mm,
fun I was around food. And I could feel it myself that
yeah.
going to the office was a drudgery. I could feel the lies before they even entered the door. I knew people were coming in to talk to me and they were going to lie to me about something. And
Yeah.
after doing that for 10 years, I guess I was burning out, and it was time for a
Yeah.
change. And so I chose culinary school. I chose to just embrace that process, milk every opportunity out of those 4 semesters that I could, and then take the opportunity that presented itself at the end of the journey. Like,
Yeah.
I wasn't out to like run a restaurant or open a B&B or anything like that. I just was like, I'll go to culinary school. I'll figure it out. This
Yeah.
will be a second career. What what
Yeah.
what could go wrong? I have a
Right.
backup plan, right? So that
Right.
was fun, and I didn't realize until I got to culinary school that I really loved teaching and showing folks um, how to do things a little bit more efficiently. Or somebody was like, "Ooh, I want the pastry cream to come out super silky and ribbon-like," and I'm like, "Oh, well, we could figure that out, right?" And so having to apply some chemistry and science, and show them like, "Oh no, your pastry cream came out all curdled. Well, here's how we're going to fix that before our chef instructor grades us down," right? So I
Hmm.
show them how to fix it. And how do you
Wow.
know all these things? Like, I don't know. I
Yeah.
just do.
Yeah.
It's just all the cookbooks that I've read over the years, all the television shows I watched over the years. It was just like, aggregated knowledge. Um, and that's when I realized, yeah, I think I want to be a chef instructor when I'm done with all of this. And I go through the school and I get the program done and get my degree. Maybe it'll be
Yeah.
teaching cooking. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's just how it all started.
I love that so much. There's just something about a lot of the authors that I speak to, there's something about that age of like, yeah, like between like 7 and 12. It's a very interesting age for a lot of the people I get to meet who sort of discovered what they end up doing. And even for me, this is very true for me. I wrote my first book. I was in fourth grade in America. We just got here from a refugee camp. I was in like third grade, and by fourth grade, I was like writing a book and like essentially submitting for this competition. I didn't even know it was a competition, and I just fell in love with art and drawing and all that kind of stuff. And then we went to become like an architect, and I was like, I didn't even, I did that for 6 months, and I was like, this is no, I don't really, I don't. There's something about the rigidness, of course, of whether it be corporate or political spheres or whatever, that for some reason dilutes our creativity and takes, in a way, like puts it aside. And that's what gives us joy. It's the thing that makes us happy. And not to say that politics or corporate doesn't make people happy. I'm just saying, like, it's just not for everybody, right? So that's
Yeah.
so cool that you, in a way, it also and that's what I felt too. I felt like drawing and kind of being my own little sketchbook and my own world was so freeing, because you're not bound to the reality of things. You're sort of
Right.
in your own world. And it sounds like perhaps that's kind of what you felt in the cooking process, and especially because you were kind of becoming independent as a very young person when your parents were working really hard. So that's beautiful. So I feel like in some way, shape, or form, this kind of resurfaced in the sort of giving that freedom to someone else, or helping them see the freedom in cooking and doing different things. And yeah, so I'll tell you right now, I am the furthest. I could barely boil an egg, to be honest with you. Like, to be honest with you, like, it's not good. It's not looking so good. So I got excited talking to you because I feel like in the chef world, y'all make it look so easy, right? And I grew up, like, my mom coddled us a little bit. She cooked everything. She would stay at home. We basically weren't even allowed in the kitchen, more or less, or if you were, it's like to chop up tomatoes or do the dishes. Like, you know what I mean? But later on, as I got older, I worked at a snack bar, and I worked at the Saturday market. So I learned the things, but I was never, again, I was an artist. So I just like wanted it done for me. You know what I mean?
That's okay. Some
Yeah.
people eat to live, other people live to
To
eat,
eat.
right?
That's right.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, so tell me a little bit about how your first book came about and what that process was like for you.
The first book was a surprise. I feel like the sky opened up and the book offer landed in my lap.
Wow.
A lot of things that I say when I'm talking about my life, my journey, my process, and my experience is really, I fall backwards into really amazing things. And so I am grateful for every opportunity that comes my way, including this opportunity to talk to you today.
Mm,
But I was burning out from my job as a chef instructor. I was managing a cooking school, and I was teaching maybe 9 classes a week, but I was working close to 12 to 14 hours a day, didn't have a lot of time for myself, was feeling like I'm trapped. I love teaching in the kitchen. I didn't really love the long hours. I didn't love all of the other demands on the job, but I loved being in the classroom, like in that 2.5 hour space of teaching a class. That was like
that's
a really special space for me. And I was looking on LinkedIn, because as you do, and I'm like, what other opportunities are there out there for a chef instructor like me? By then, I had close to maybe 12 to 15 years experience teaching, um, and just thinking like, what is next? What is next? I didn't know. I didn't know. I didn't see a way forward. Um, the type of chef instructor jobs that I wanted that were full time, that were in a structured corporate business, there just weren't that many available. And so, what was I going to do? Was I going to strike out on my own? Was I going to create a cooking school of my own, or do private chef classes on, like, what was I going to do? And this email just came through LinkedIn, it just a message, and said, hey, wondering if you would be interested in collaborating with us on a cookbook. Like, what?
yeah,
So,
yeah.
and you know how when like stuff like that like just comes out of the blue, you immediately, your first
Suspect.
reaction is whoa, and then the second reaction
Yeah.
is wait a second, right? So I
Yeah.
did a little bit of due diligence and research on this company. They were a publishing company on the other side of the bay from me. I'm in the Bay Area. And I
Okay.
thought, yeah, I've heard of some of these books that they've published. I went to the bookstore and I bought a few and I looked through and I'm like, yeah, this is a legit company. My goodness. And the beautiful thing about that was it was like turnkey, right?
Mhm.
They were a publishing company. They owned an imprint. They basically said, this is what we call a commission cookbook, right? It's a
Right.
commission publication. So they did all of the data analysis and all of the data research to see like what are the top searched subjects in cooking.
Mhm.
And they found, okay, let's take seafood. What are the top topics in seafood? Like, is it cooking with fish, sustainable fish? So then they started to dig a little bit deeper into sustainability and like, what are the
Right.
10 most sustainable seafoods out there? And can we create a cookbook? And what are people searching through the Amazon search or even the Google search? And they were actually able to use that data and
Yeah.
come up with books that they knew would
Yeah.
sell because they could also see the audience target and the market
Right.
people, right, of the people who were doing these searches. And so they
Beautiful.
created an entire outline and they just said, we have the outline. We
Yeah.
just need somebody to write the recipes for us.
That's amazing.
Like, just
Yeah.
hand it to me, like turnkey. And so I'm like, sure. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, sure, there was an outline. Sure, there was a framework of chapters, and
Sure.
there was like one on
That's great.
salmon, one on sardines, one on like the 10 most
Right.
sustainable seafoods out there.
Right.
And, what is it? How do we shop sustainably? What does that mean? Does that mean that it has to be the most expensive seafood around? Sustainability? No, it could mean canned, it could mean frozen. But like, you have to look at the labels to see, is it farmed? Is it wild caught? Where in the region is this, brought in from, and things like that. And so I did a lot of research on
Mm.
filling in those topics, as well as developing over 100 recipes, because it was 10 chapters, 10 fish, 10 recipes per chapter. And they gave me a timeline. We had milestones that I had to reach within the timeline. We had an editor. We had a developmental editor that actually read through everything. And green onions, do you mean sliced white and green, white parts and green
Right.
parts sliced separately, or can that all just be thrown together? And it was really wonderful to have that developmental editing, because as an instructor, I'm able to just kind of talk in terms and concepts and have people come back and
Right.
say, well, wait a minute, what do you mean by that? But in a
Right.
book, in a written recipe, people don't have that opportunity. So the
Right.
developmental editor was fabulous in saying, well,
That's amazing.
people aren't going to necessarily know, Terry, so you have to be a little bit more specific. And so
Yeah.
that was a really wonderful learning opportunity for me. So they had their own art department. They had their own layout editor and graphic designers. I just had to submit, headshot, bio, the full manuscript during the
Sure.
milestone deadlines.
Yeah.
And yeah, they had a marketing plan, and they just put it out there. And
That's
they were
amazing.
doing this, and it was kind of like a churning situation for a while. I did notice that right through the pandemic, they really ramped up their production because people were at home more. They were buying more cookbooks. They were searching online more for how to
Yeah.
make things
Yeah.
from home, and so it was a huge boom back then. And then they were acquired by another publishing company, and I know that they're
Mm.
still doing it, but they're just not. They don't have as much force behind the
Sure.
cookbooks anymore, which is fine.
Yeah.
It was, I'll say it was intense,
Yeah.
to write a full cookbook in 9 weeks. It was pretty
Yeah.
intense. And I had the time, I mean, it was
That's
during
huh?
the
It's
pandemic. We
amazing.
were, we
Yeah.
were like, stay at home, just stay at home. Don't
Yeah.
leave. So I stayed at home and wrote 3 cookbooks. So it was, it
Yeah.
was a really wonderful time. And I'm super grateful for that opportunity, and to have
That's
4
cool.
titles to my name. Yeah.
That's amazing. I love that so much. And I think, it's interesting what happens when we sort of start to feel like, yeah, start to feel and sort of navigate like, what's next? What can I sink my teeth into? How can I utilize what I know and bring it to probably a broader audience, those kinds of things. A book is a
Yep.
fantastic way to do that. And of course, now, let's be real here. When you're on LinkedIn and you're sharing your work, you were, in my opinion, you were probably discovered. Somebody saw something that you either posted or did or whatever. I mean, I guess there is randomness, but there's also preparation that meets that luck, right? Yeah, you can call yourself lucky. I always tell people like, there's something behind that luck though, and it's a lot of hard work, and it's years of persistence and teaching, and so I personally think, yeah, of course there was luck, but you've been preparing for that moment. You just probably didn't know that a book was an option, or maybe potentially a next step. Of course, you're a teacher. I think those two kind of go together. But sometimes when we have a set of skills or expertise or knowledge, and to think about packaging it into a book, sometimes sometimes I work with authors, they feel a little, insecure, like, am I the right person to do this or whatever? But it's kind of nice when somebody actually reaches out to you and goes, no, we're like choosing you because we see what you've been up to, and you might be the one for this. I think it's really powerful. Also, it's not getting to know you now. Doesn't sound like it was a surprise, because you were sort of in the seafood world and that was kind of your thing. And it sounds like they just kind of matched the right person to the right project. So that's really cool.
Yeah, data, deep dive into data, and data, like giving you pictures and stories, because it's all evidenced by numbers, that
Yeah.
really is very powerful. And that was something that really helped me get over some imposter syndrome, as a first time author. Like, well, who the hell am I? And why would somebody buy a book written by me? Like, when there's
Right.
so many other behind me. Look at all these cookbooks that have been written before. Like, there are a lot of famous cookbook authors and chefs out there. Like, who the
Right.
heck am I? And
Yeah.
so, but just, trusting the process and knowing that, and when I did ask the publishing company, like, hey, why did you approach me of all people? They just said, we did a Google search. We did a Google search for chef instructor in the Bay Area, and your name popped up. We saw your website, we saw your LinkedIn, we saw all of the other little articles that were written about you, and we saw the types of classes that you were teaching, and we just thought, yeah, this is aligned with what we're looking for. And so I had to trust that. I had to like really trust that
Oh, yeah.
I need to just hang on to that and let that imposter syndrome thing that comes up at 3 o'clock in the morning, let
Right.
that go away. Say thank you, but no, there are other people that are behind this decision. It's not just me putting
Yeah.
myself out there.
Yeah. But also,
Yeah.
there's proof, right? And I always tell people, like, if you're feeling any kind of imposter syndrome, look for the proof. Like, the proof is you've been doing this for years. You putting yourself out there. Google, did what it's supposed to do, which is align, like, hey, this person is legit. They do this kind of work. They've showed up on these news clips. So it's like, okay, great. Like, there are all these tools, right? This is a big thing. I love that you said that, look, they did a Google search and I popped up in all these various ways. And that's so important because I'm a marketing guy. So I'm a big fan of build in public, share your work. The little things that you get, the little articles, the little whatever, like, this isn't necessarily just about you. It's about how people will perceive you and the
Hmm.
opportunities that come from that perception. And we're not out here just like tooting our own horn, but we're saying, hey, look, I'm I'm proud of what I do. I'm proud of my work. This is the thing that I've committed my life to, my time to, and I'm pretty good at it. And we don't need to approach that in like a very like condescending or cocky way or whatever. It's just like
Right.
being proud, and that's great. And I love that they reached out to you because you were the right person at the right time for the right opportunity. And I think that's luck, right? Where all these things kind of meet in the middle, that's luck. So that's so cool that they reached out to you. Very deserving.
Thanks.
So then you went off and then wrote another 3 books. Was it with the same publishing company, or did you go off on your own, or how did those come about? Just
It,
curious.
yeah, it was with the same publishing company. I think once you're a validated resource, they know
Yeah.
that they can trust you. They know your work style. If you're nice to work with and you're polite and you're professional and you turn your
Yeah.
work in on time and you
Yeah.
you you do you're conscientious about all of the other teams that are involved in producing this cookbook, right? So I was a professional. I was really uh, thoughtful and conscientious about the other teams involved, and I was just repeatedly offered other books, which was great. It was really
Yeah.
flattering and it was wonderful. And again, I still felt like, ooh, I still need to prove myself, right? Like one cookbook wasn't enough. Like that was probably just the fluke, the flash, the luck. Let's see what I can do. And so I honestly feel like the 3 others that came my way, again, really grateful for those offers, really grateful that we got to do them. But the book that I'm most proud of is that dumpling cookbook because
Hmm.
it's we even said you can buy store-bought dumpling wrappers. Absolutely, there's no shame in that. We can do that, and we say that in the book. It's fine. But there are some dumpling recipes where you have to make the dumpling wrapper from scratch, right? There's that
Mm,
special see-through crystal dumpling dough that, like, once it steams up, you can almost see inside what the
mhm.
filling looks like. That you can't buy that from the store, unfortunately. So, having to do the work to make sure that if I get the ratios right and the ingredients right and the instructions written correct, that it can come out every single time the way it's supposed to. And that way, anybody from anywhere in the country or the world can read this recipe and do it in their own conditions with their own understanding and interpretation. It still comes out. I think that to me was something that I'm really, really proud of. And then also just, talking about all the stories, me growing up as a kid, and, my mom making me make wontons and make dumplings, and, just doing all that stuff as a kid and not really wanting to, but then also not wanting to do anything my mom ever wanted me to do. And then, but still, that someday you'll thank me for this line always came out. And here we are. Like, yes, mom. Thank you for forcing me to make all those dumplings and all those wontons,
Right.
and to really understand like how to mix the filling so it binds together but it's not too tough, and all of those things.
Mm,
And she's not a chef. She's not a chef instructor, but she just had enough know-how to make it come out right and to show
right.
me what that is. I had to fill in the science behind it all, right? But
Right.
yeah, someday you'll thank me
Yeah.
for this. I mean, it just keeps ringing
I
back
think,
into my ears.
yeah. They have a, like our grandparents, moms, even dads, right? That passed down tradition. I think their chemistry, their science is like, it's love. You make it with your hands, spend time with it. She got
Right.
to spend time with you, you got to spend time with her. Like that's a part of the ingredient that we love, right? Like it's the love component. Like, of course, the science of making it and getting the right ingredients and going to the store and purchasing the right things, that's a science of itself. But then I think there's the art of it, which is like the love component, the time, the commitment, the discipline, the have to wait for the water to do its thing, the oils, the like, and then seeing it over and over. I mean, again, I'm no chef. I don't cook, but the golden brown moment, right? When things turn golden brown, wherever they are in the cooking process, like to
Yeah.
study and know, you can almost feel it, right? Like, oh, you can like, I remember my mom like doing, I'm Middle Eastern, so the whole Middle Eastern palate, right? Picking it up and tasting, it's like, oh, just a sprinkle of salt and sprinkle. It's like, how do you know to sprinkle that? Like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? What did you measure that? No, who needs measuring tools? Like they're just so. It's very intuitive because she too has been doing it since she was 5 or 6 years old with her
Right.
mom, right? And it's just
Right.
such a beautiful thing that obviously you hear a lot of people talk about the beauty of cooking and coming around a table and what that means for family. It's such an important time, eating a meal together. It's such, I don't know. I don't know that there's any culture that doesn't in some way, shape, or form celebrate anything without food. Like when
Right.
you're celebrating, like if there's a ceremony, there's a celebration, somewhere in there there's a food. And typically there's some kind of food, like a baklava, right? Or kebabs at this thing, or no, we don't do
Hmm.
fish in the morning. Like, there's always like a cultural context to food too, which I thought was very fascinating. um, what for you would you say, like Hussein, this is my favorite food at this I love having this food at this specific time. It just brings back this beautiful
Mm.
memory. What is that for you?
Wow. I would have to say it's for me especially, it's the Chinese hot pot. So we have this big stock pot of boiling broth in the middle of
Mhm.
the table, and everybody comes around to the table, and depending on how many people you have, you can have multiple pots simmering at the same
Yeah.
time. In my family it's three because
Yeah.
we have so many people coming around. But there's thinly
Beautiful.
sliced there's thinly sliced raw animal proteins like pork and lamb and beef, and we've got vegetables, and we have seafood, and some noodles, and we have
Mm,
dipping sauces. And it's just the hot pot, right? You just sort of start throwing things into the broth till it cooks, and then you use a little dipping sauce, and you just eat that. And it, to me, it's warm, it's comforting, because of course it really is simmering, like the house is just all steamed up by the time
yeah.
the meal is over. But you're warmed and you're comforted and you're satisfied with all of these really delicious little bits of food that you just keep dunking into the broth and eating. And
Mm.
the older adults are throwing things in, and as it comes out they're like giving it to everybody else around the table. It's like, no, you're supposed to cook your own, and it's a communal thing. And at the end, you end up with this like delicious bowl of soup from all of the
Mm.
flavors of all the food that you threw in there, the seafood, the beef, the lamb, the pork, the vegetables, the mushrooms, and then the fresh greens that you throw in there at the end, and maybe some
Mm.
noodles, and then you have this really big comforting bowl of noodles at the end. Of course, everybody's so full, that's usually the leftover for tomorrow. And so to me, that's the meal that speaks
Mm.
about tradition and speaks about emotions and comfort and memories. And also just, we did this for my brother's children just recently. And you know, over the last 2 years, they keep asking, like, can we do this again? Can we have hot pot
Yeah.
again? And so absolutely, I go out and I get everything from the store and we set it up
Yeah.
so the kids can continue, to experience that, because that's a core memory for them,
Yeah.
doing
I
hot pot.
love that. So when do you like to do this? Is it just kind of like, yeah, random when the kids want it? Do you like, let's do it for birthdays? Do you do it for holidays? Are there like what are the times that you usually like to kind of bring the people together and do something like this?
So we get together as a family, like for any excuse. If like the girls have a dance recital, if it's Father's
Perfect.
Day, if it's
Right.
Memorial Day, like whatever. But hot pot is essentially a wintertime or cold weather type of meal.
Mm.
So we'll do it in the winter and fall months when it's kind of gray and cold and drizzly out. But it's also for like birthday celebrations. So being, from the Chinese culture, you have to have noodles for a birthday meal, right? If you're celebrating somebody's birthday, you got to have noodles because that symbolizes long life. And so we make
Mm.
sure that we put those noodles into the hot pot soup. But, we did it the very first time for my dad's birthday. I think my dad was turning, 79 or 80 at the time.
Mm.
And, my brother was like, well, the kids have never had hot pot before, so let's do that. So
Oh,
we went
wow.
all out and they loved it. And, again, it was a family celebration. It was to celebrate dad's birthday. Yeah, so we do it. And by the way, our family, like nobody, well, I won't say nobody, like maybe with the exception of 3 people, everybody's birthday is like between November and January. So it's the perfect time for us to do.
Beautiful. That's amazing. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love that. Wow, that's really powerful. I think for me, growing up, um, the time that really resonates with me is Ramadan. And because
Hmm.
dinners at Ramadan, you're first of all, you're starving. You haven't eaten all day. Second of all, mom has been cooking it up all afternoon, right?
Right.
Preparing that one dinner, and then all the brothers would gather. They'd come from work or they're from different whatever, and family would all gather. And it was that like it's the coming together. It's such a magnet force, and I think that hasn't changed probably for millions of years. I don't know, right? You cook a
Right.
big thing in the middle, invite the whole tribe, you feast, and you celebrate the day, celebrate the month, the year, whatever it is. It's such a beautiful thing, and I admire and love people who you know, genuinely care, not what just about what they put in their bodies and thinking about health and thinking about the wellness, because we are what we eat, but also just like thinking of the act of eating as a celebratory thing,
Hmm.
and that it's fun, that it's engaging, that it's interesting, it's unique, it's different, it's vibrant, it's colorful, it is in a form an art, and it's beautiful. And so I admire that, and I admire you for being not only an advocate for cooking and writing cookbooks and all those things, but teaching and the art of teaching. So I want to know how, for those authors out there that love to use their expertise, put it in a book, get published, and all those kinds of things. What's something that has come from writing books that has either surprised you or has, allowed more opportunities to come from it, and from writing, and how has that helped you in your professional career now?
Really great questions. First, I'll say for folks who are getting started and thinking about like what they want to put pen to paper, focus on something that you know really, really well. And what is your point of view on it, right? So again, going back to the little discussion we had about imposter syndrome, I'm like, there are thousands of seafood and fish cookbooks out there. Why would anybody want? And I had to really shut that down, and I had to say, well, this is my cookbook. It's got to have my name on it. Yes, there's a theme to it. It's the 10 most sustainable fish and seafood recipes, but what is my point of view, right? Like, what is so special about these recipes? Well, I wrote them. And I put a lot of thought into the head note, right? That little blurb before the recipe gets
Mhm.
started. It's not like a blog where it can go on for pages, but
Right.
it's just sort of, the reason why I chose to curate this recipe into this cookbook for this chapter is because. And
Mm.
so for folks getting started, have your own point of view. And what is it that you want to say about this particular subject? I think that's the most important thing. And I'll say the cookbook publishing journey has been fantastic for me. And I, as a chef instructor, before I started writing the cookbooks, I did a lot of curriculum development for the cooking classes that I was teaching, right? I was having to set up what is the subject of the class? What are we going to be cooking or baking in this class? What are people going to come to learn? And then I would have to write the recipes for that, right? And
Mm.
because the recipes are given to the students after, maybe some people, are in the moment and they're in the class and it's a hands-on cooking class and they're learning and they're talking to me and everything, but they're not paying attention to the recipe. So then they take the recipe home and they go, oh, wait a minute. I don't remember that. I don't remember that, right? But the recipe instructions have to be written in a way that anybody can pick up that recipe, read it, understand what we're talking about, do what they think the instructions are telling them to do, and then have it come out successfully, right? We have to always think about the outcome. So that sort of got me into thinking, hey, wait a minute, I really like teaching. And the job that I was in at the time was really about managing the food service for the childcare program for the campus
Mm.
where I worked. And I was writing recipes for those, and I had a team of cooks, but a lot of them didn't have a lot of culinary experience. So I had to, again, write it so that it was a huge volumes, like 400 portions of food versus like 8
Mm.
for a family, and it had to come out right. And then I thought I could train people on how to accurately follow recipes, right? Like not just
Mm.
as a chef instructor in a cooking class environment, but like as a corporate trainer. Like how do people read recipes? How do they execute the recipes so that we can scale and it comes out correctly every single
Wow.
time?
Very
And then
powerful.
I thought, well, that's called instructional design, right? And a lot of people know instructional design in terms of compliance trainings,
Sure. Hmm.
but still, there's a lot of thought in science and psychology behind even developing a compliance training. So I went into studying that for a little bit, and I just thought, I want to be a culinary instructional designer. I want to
That's so
like
cool.
develop the training programs. I want to make sure that learning outcomes are achieved at the end of a training video or a slide deck or even just a step-by-step picture build guide. We could do it like the IKEA way,
Right.
right? Or
Right.
even
Right.
if you remember like those food kit, those meal kit companies, like Blue Apron was one of them, HelloFresh is another, where they
Yep.
send you the entire kit and then they give you this card of the recipe with the instructions. Like that
Right.
is a step-by-step build guide, right? And the outcome has to be a perfectly cooked, delicious meal. Um, so I thought about like instructional design is something that is now starting to really light my fire, and I really love it.
Mm.
And I was able to, just because people where I worked knew that I had been a chef instructor for so long, that I even launched a YouTube channel in like 2012 with my partner Mia Chambers. We were called Dear Martini, and we did bite-sized technique
Yeah.
videos. And so they all knew that I had the skill set.
Right.
And so eventually, after many months of me thinking about this, it finally manifested into, hey, there's a role for a culinary instructional designer on our team. Would you like to apply for it? Again, I fall backwards into the most amazing opportunities, and I'm yes. And so here I am now. I'm an instructional designer. I manage training programs. I develop programs, I develop training videos, and then out of that, again, came out of, well, we need voiceover narration for that. So yeah, bought a mic did the voiceover narration for some training videos, from also some explainer videos, and then thought, hey, I really like to do this too. Hopefully this will be like a retirement gig for me, and I can flip full time to record audiobooks full time, or do explainer videos or corporate promo or something. But e-learning narration, totally up my street, because I know how to describe step by steps, right? I know how to convey directions to get the outcomes that I want. So yeah, I have to say, after the books came this other opportunity of instructional design, which then from that, the voiceover came back in and was like, hey, what about me? You got
Right.
to pay more
Right.
attention to voiceover. Like, we love voiceover,
Yeah.
right? We love reading out loud. We love talking to people. Like, yes, we do.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so you're meeting me now where all three elements are sort of like just coming out and
Yeah.
blooming.
That's fantastic. I love that you not only chose culinary world, but you've also always leveled up and taken your creativity and got the coaching, learned how to do it better. We're interested in different ways of explaining things, different ways of sharing your knowledge, different ways of helping people in this culinary world with the thing that you actually love, which is teaching. And teaching comes in so many different formats, whether it's graphic, whether it's visual, whether it's vocal. Clearly, you've sort of learned to master one at a time. And you've become this sort of multi-talented, multifaceted professional in this realm. That's so, so powerful. That's one thing I wish many authors understand, in that, like, the book is a beginning. It's not the end of the
Not the
career
end.
or the end of
Mhm.
whatever. It really is the door opener. I always say, like, you open a door, and it's like, this is a book. You open it up, and there's so much more here. There's so much more opportunity. And I love that you've taken on those opportunities and asked yourself, well, how can I, best use this? Or what's the next version of this? What's the next iteration of this? That's so powerful. I love that so much. Thank you for
Thank
sharing
you,
that stuff.
Hussein. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool to see how you've sort of, um, taken something from when you were 8 years old that allowed you the independence to feel free, to feel like you're in control of something, to now, helping others feel that, helping others understand how to be that. That's so cool. To me, that whole arch is beautiful to look at. So kudos to you. And, I want to know sort of what's next for you. What are you working on now? What can we look forward to? And where can people find you and connect with you?
Oh, lovely. Great question. Working backwards, people can find me on LinkedIn. They can connect with me there. They can also check out the website. The voiceover website is up at terrydean-vo.com, and you can hear some of my samples of e-learning training, as well as samples of the audiobooks that I've done. And then what's next for me? Like I said, I'm sort of dabbling right now in a very personal cookbook. Family recipes from my perspective as a latchkey kid. So that's my point of view. And I'm hoping to continue to do some recipe development and just pulling up some stories. It's really it's more of a family story kind of thing, where we're starting to see, some family elders are getting up there in age, and it's time to get some stories down on paper before they're lost forever. So we want to make
Mm,
sure that we get that all recorded and down. But right now, I'm perfectly happy just moving along in my day job. Just still managing training and instructional design where I work, doing some
beautiful.
trainings there, really focusing on making sure that the food that our company prepares is safe, and it's trustworthy for folks who come in who maybe take the food and maybe they have food allergies, and they need to know what food allergens are in the food that they're about to eat. So we want to make sure that there's a process behind disclosing allergens and doing ingredient verification, just to make sure that there is trust in the food that we're serving. So working on stuff like that. A lot of training still happening. Every now and then, maybe once a quarter, I get to step in and teach a class. Most of the time, they're dumpling classes. But yeah, folks can reach out if they want a cooking lesson. We can do a Zoom class. If they want to just have a chat about like the writing process, we can also have a Zoom chat on that. But certainly, you know, if anybody is looking for an audiobook narrator, I'm here. I do a lot of nonfiction narration. YA, young adult, is always fun for me because again, it's about that discovery of your emotions, discovery of who you are. And yeah, that's me.
Love that. Terry, it has been an absolute pleasure just hanging out with you today, learning about your world. Thank you for being my first guest around a cookbook and cookbooks. And not only that, but you really like helped me understand that world a little bit more. You shed so much more light. And thank you for bringing your passion, your creativity, your home, your spirit to not only this world, but to this conversation. I'm so grateful we got to meet. This probably will most likely not be our last conversation because I will be on the road doing a van tour, podcast tour. And I think for sure we'll probably be stopping by the Bay Area. And it would be so cool to do this in person in the
Yeah.
future. Terry,
Yeah.
it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you again for joining me today. I appreciate you.
Honored that you had me, Hussein. Really. Thank you so much for this. And yes, if you
Yeah.
come through the Bay Area, let's make some dumplings together. I think
Ooh,
that'll be a lot of fun.
sold. Done.
Okay.
Done. I love it.